Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's Sohbet and Sufi meditation with myself, Paul Salahuddin Armstrong, at St. Francis Hall, Birmingham. If you're in Birmingham, you're most welcome to join me at the chaplaincy on a Monday evening from about 5 p.m. onwards, where we can actually do this in person. But if not, you're most welcome to join me online. Today, I would like to talk a little about Islam and modernity, because some people they have this impression that as Muslims we should do things a certain way, and that way is then unchanging. We're very traditional people, and this isn't all Muslims, of course, but there are a lot of Muslims that have this idea that because things have been done a certain way in the past, that is the way that we are supposed to do them. And people tend to continue with that. I mean, it's like even I'm wearing a certain style of hat here, I'm wearing a certain style of scarf that is actually an Indian type of Muslim scarf. Now, this does not make me any more or less Muslim than anybody else. It's ultimately it's a fashion choice, and there's no harm in that. But it's like if people read too much into that and think that that is something which, as Muslims, we are supposed to do. I mean, where does that list end? And how does that ultimately, what is the end result of that if we take that to the logical conclusion? Because it's not just scarves, it's not just hats, it becomes certain styles of clothing. It becomes particular kinds of outfits that, like certain styles of niqab or burqa that may have been worn in certain places at certain times. But does Islam require any of that? The question is, if the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu was born in 2020, or maybe not born in 2020, because then he would be living in, but if he was born in, let's say, the 1980s, and Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu was preaching in 2023, would Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu be asking us to use sticks to brush our teeth? Or would the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu be asking us to use toothbrushes and toothpaste? Maybe the toothpaste might be different that he would advocate to use, because maybe this toothpaste has some health issues and that toothpaste is better because it's made of more natural ingredients. But would the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu be telling us to use sticks instead of proper toothbrushes and toothpaste? I don't think so. I mean, of course, there's no way of 100% knowing this, because we're talking about things which were taught 1400 years ago. But it is a useful thought exercise to play out in our heads and to think about, well, what if the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu was a prophet in 2023? Would the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu be using camels? Or would the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu likely have a car? Or would he use a bus and a train and maybe taxis sometimes? Would the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu travel to Mecca by camel, or would he get a flight on one of the airline companies? I mean, if we don't think about these things and reflect, then we don't change our thinking, we don't develop our thinking. Islam is not supposed to be, something which is absolutely fixed in stone and doesn't grow or develop. Even the Sharia is, most of it was made by the scholars of Islam. Most of the things which you find in Sharia are not things which are exactly how they're described in Sharia books now. They're not exactly like that in the Quran. They're not like that even in the Hadith. These are based upon those ideas, but they were written by ulama who specialized in the area of fiqh, some of them over 1,000 years ago. And I'm not criticizing any of these scholars. They were great scholars of their time over 1,000 years ago. But then Do we rely on science from over 1,000 years ago without further development to do anything else in our lives? Do we rely on law from over 1,000 years ago in any other aspect of our lives other than religion? Where are the laws from over 1,000 years ago which discuss air traffic control or the road laws as to how to drive safely on the roads and to stop at a red light? Not, I mean, this is not mentioned anywhere in any of the books of Sharia. So what do we do? Now, if we realize this, then surely we should also realize this, when it comes to Islam's teachings in regards to toothbrushes, hats, scarves, clothes. When the Prophet Muhammad SAW was asked for guidelines on clothing, he said for a man that he should wear something which covers between his navel and his knees. The Prophet Muhammad SAW did not specify what that had to be. He just gave a general advice that it should cover, and this is even in the hadith, just something that should cover between the navel and the knees. The rest is interpretation. When asked about what women should wear, the Prophet Muhammad SAW said that all the stuff that should normally be covered should be covered. So a bit more. But even then, the Prophet Muhammad SAW did not specify a particular type of hijab, a specific particular type of niqab, a particular type of long gown, or anything like this. This is down to interpretation. And if we look from one Muslim country to another Muslim country, even in the traditional Muslim cultures, there are so much variation all around the Muslim world, whether you go to Indonesia or Morocco or Saudi Arabia or India, how the Muslims in these countries interpret these guidelines. So how should they be interpreted in a modern context in 2023? Fashions have changed, clothing styles have changed, even the manufacture of clothes has changed. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, none of the clothes were manufactured. All the clothes that people were wearing were handmade. They were not manufactured in machines that we've only had since the Industrial Revolution. Most people had very little clothing, except for very rich people. There's even hadiths that I have read where there was only one piece of cloth that a couple had. And when one of the people went out of the house, when the husband went out of the house, he would cover himself in that cloth. That would mean he would leave his wife at home naked because they only had one cloth. And then when he returned home and she had to go out of the house, she would take the cloth and cover herself in the cloth. I'm not making this up. This is something I read in a hadith a long time ago, but I read it. And if you think about it logically, in a time before the manufacture of clothing, where all the clothes had to be handmade, crocheted, or knitted, or even woven on a simple loom that was hand operated, there's only so much clothing that you can manufacture in that way. This was also in the time before artificial materials, before the invention of polyester or acrylic or nylon or any of these modern materials which a large amount of our clothes are made from. Now, with issues to do with the environment, that's caused a lot of other questions, but I'm not going to go into that now because artificial materials, they don't break down easily and they get into the environment. But nonetheless, the reason we have the amount of cloth that we have today, the amount of clothing that we have today, is because of the Industrial Revolution, which completely changed the manufacturing of things and the increase of products massively from what they were previously. If it wasn't for the Industrial Revolution, we would not have access to the amount of garments that we have access to now. We would not have access even to the amount of material that is used to make those garments. It simply wouldn't have been made because you cannot do it without machines, without factories, without modern technology. So, some people, it's interesting the way they interpret stuff from the past in their own way, and they forget the fact that we are living in a time now where we have all of this modern convenience, modern manufacturing, and ignoring like that hadith that I mentioned, where there was only one piece of cloth between two people in a couple, in a marriage. And when one of them went out of the house, that person had to wear the garment. And when their partner went out of the house, they had to wear the garment. There was nothing else. And even the people that had more than that, maybe they only had 2 or 3 pieces of clothing, like 2 or 3 changes of clothing. Today, how many of us will open our wardrobe and it is full of 10, 20, 30, maybe hundreds of different kinds of outfits that we can wear? This is completely different from the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, is that evil? Is that wrong? Not necessarily. Although if we have such wealth to be able to afford hundreds of different outfits, you know, we should consider people that even today, they are lucky to have a change of clothing. Whether that's because of natural disasters or just because they are in such poverty in somewhere in the world where they literally, they can't afford these things. We should have some understanding and sympathy for them and to see what we can do to help them. But even the poorest people in this country, even some homeless people, they have at least a few changes of clothing. We are very fortunate, to be honest. And sometimes I think we don't always realize that. And you get a lot of people today that they are talking about various, you know, narratives which are very negative, various theories about, you know, the way the world is going and it's a disaster. And of course, I'm not suggesting that the world is perfect. There's loads of issues, but then there's always been issues. There's always been problems in every time that people have lived. But at the same time, we have a massive amount of luxury and convenience, even amongst people who aren't really wealthy by modern standards. This is something completely different to the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And how would the fact that that context is so different have affected the way that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised people in the times that we are now living? This is why we cannot just simply take things that were written down 1400 years ago and take exactly as they are written. That was a different society. That was a different time. We have to try to understand what are the core teachings that run through these books and messages that have been left to us within those texts, and to see what are they really saying, what is the key points, and bring out those key points and see how we can implement those in our day-to-day lives. And of course, one of the main ones is the kalama shahada, that there is no God except the God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. This taking into account that Muhammad is the last in a long line of messengers of God. This is the key message of Islam. And from this, it's like that message is the seed that you can grow taqwa from this seed. The tree of taqwa grows from La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The person who believes this, they can start to develop faith. They can start to develop taqwa, which is God consciousness in their heart, in their mind, and in their soul. And the more taqwa that they develop, the more their actions will improve. Even if they have no specialized knowledge of jurisprudence, of fiqh, or any other aspect of Islam, just the development of taqwa within them will improve their behavior towards other people, because they become more conscious of what they are doing. They become, and this is what it is really about. Islam gives us tools. These tools are for a type of personal development that improves how we think, improves how we act, improves how we approach other people, how we appreciate other people. What kind of a society that we want to contribute to, what kind of contribution we make towards that society. You see, people can be generous or they can be selfish. People can be considerate or they can be inconsiderate. People can be kind or people can be hateful. Islam is here to advise us to walk towards that which is good and implement that which is good within our lives, and to take out from ourselves and from our lives those things which are bad. This message is what runs through the Quran, to strive for that which is good and against that which is bad. The more that we do this, the more that we develop as a human being, we become a better human being. That message is timeless. And we should be looking at those things which are the timeless essence of Islam, which can be implemented in any society, in any context, in any kind of culture, in any kind of situation, in any time or any generation. That is the real essence and heart of Islam. But the other things which are to do with a particular style of clothing or way of trimming our beard or things like these are things which are cultural. I'm not saying they have nothing to do with the religion, but what I'm saying is primarily their essence is cultural and their essence is also external. Ultimately, anything which is outer, anything which is external, this is not what we're going to be presenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of reckoning. What we're going to be presenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to question us on is the state and condition of our heart and what we said and did during our lives. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to question us on the day of reckoning. Allah is not going to question us on whether we wore an Indian scarf or an English scarf, whether our beard was 2 inches long or 3 inches long, or whether we shaved. This is not of the most importance. A person can be clean shaved and be an extremely decent and good person who prays a lot, gives lots of charity, looks after people, cares for people. Alternatively, a person can have a big beard and be an absolute tyrant and the most awful person. Which one is Allah going to be happy with? Is Allah going to be happy with the person who is clean shaven and they're kind, charitable, and thoughtful, that they keep their namaz and their prayers and they give charity? Or a person who's got a big beard and their intentions are all wrong and they're doing corrupt things and they're doing scams and they're doing drug dealing? Do you think the beard is going to save them? Do you think the scarf or the particular style of clothing they're wearing is going to save them on that day? No, I think Allah will question them. You knew something about Islam, something enough that you could change your dress code, but how come you were not living the reality of Islam? The things which were more important. Why did you hurt and harm other people? Which is what Allah cares more about than how we look or how we dressed. And if you want to grow a beard, or I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying what's more important. This is what we need to focus on, and not so much appearances. Appearances have always changed. Appearances and styles and fashions, even if you look through the Muslim world, they're all different. The traditional styles of clothing. So we need to be a bit more thoughtful in the way that we approach things and try to understand what is Islam really about. Wa alaikum assalam, brothers, and Idris, nice to see you, Idris. You know, you could come here if you wanted. It's not far away, but it's good to see you. And I'm just about to start the zikr. It will be a shorter zikr today because I have a group downstairs which I'm hosting, and I need to get back to them. But I've been a little delayed doing this session because I was helping a Hindu group try to sort out their electrical issues in the Kabri room. The wall sockets are not working, unfortunately. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As I just mentioned, the importance of intentions. So before we do anything, we always check our intentions and make sure that what we're doing is purely for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, I read a little formula for this, but the important thing is just to look into your heart and to ask yourself, am I doing this purely for the pleasure of God, or am I doing it for some other reason? نويت العبي نويت الرسل نويت القهوة نويت الاعتكاف نويت السلوك نويت الرياضة لله تعالى في هذا جميع. I intend to perform the 40 days of retreat. I intend to retreat in isolation. I intend to retreat in solitude. I intend to perform the retreat. I intend to follow the path. I intend to perform the spiritual practices for Allah the highest in this place of worship. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Seek Allah's forgiveness with the recitation of Astaghfirullah. Literally just means, God forgive me. Astaghfirullah, 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 Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. أستغفر العظيم من كل ذنب ومعصية ومن كل ما يقرف دين الإسلام يا الرحمن الرحيم. يا وهاب يا وهاب يا وهاب يا مسبب الأسباب يا مفاتيح أبواب يا مقلب القلوب والأبصار يا دليل المتغيرين يا غاية المستغيثين يا حي يا قيوم يا ذو الجلال والإكرام وفريد أمر الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. Wrap it Sharifa, direct your heart to the heart of your Sheikh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق ومن شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس مالك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس لا إله إلا الله 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 محمد رسول الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد النبي الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد النبي الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد النبي الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد الحبيب الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد الحبيب الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد الحبيب الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد الحبيب الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد الشفيع الله عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله محمد الشافي الله عليه الصلاة الله لا إله إلا الله محمد الشافي الله عليه الصلاة الله لا إله إلا الله محمد الشافي الله عليه الصلاة الله لا إله إلا الله محمد الشافي الله عليه الصلاة الله لا إله إلا الله محمد الشافي الله عليه الصلاة الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد المصطفى عليه الصلاة الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد المصطفى عليه الصلاة الله لا إله إلا الله محمد المصطفى عليه الصلاة الله لا إله إلا الله محمد المصطفى عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد المصطفى عليه الصلاة لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلوات الشريفة. بسم الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. صلي ربي وسلم على جميع أنبياء ومرسلين وعلى كل أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين على أشرف الأمين سيدنا محمد صلوات على أفضل الأمين سيدنا محمد صلوات على أكمل الأمين سيدنا محمد صلوات صلوات الله وملائكته وأنبيائه ورسوله وجميع كوكه على محمد وعلى آل محمد عليه وعليه السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته ولي الله تبارك وتعالى أن تدتنا شبي رسول الله أجمعين وأن تبينا بهم بإحسان وأن مجتدينا مدين وأن علماء متقين وأن أولياء الصالحين أما شيخنا في طريقة نقشبندية آلية وإلا ولي سونغو قدس الله تعالى وخما زكيا ونوداه أجرت مباركة ود الله تعالى علينا من بركاتهم وفيداتهم دائما والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المكتوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله. اللهم بارك ثواب ما قرونه ونور ما ترونه هدية ووسيلة من روح نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإلا أنبياء وإلا أولياء قصة روح إمام طريقة وغوثي كليكا شعبه الدين نقشبند محمد الويسي البخاري وإلا شيخ شريف هداية الله وإلا ولي سونغو وإلا شيخ يوسف مكاسري وإلى الشيخ عبد الله وفايز الداغستاني وإلى زند بيا وإلى صوفي عبد الله وإلى مولانا الشيخ نازي مدين لكاني وإلى الشيخ داود رصا أوين وإلى قسطور وإلى الشيخ دانج بدر الدين وإلى مولانا الشيخ هشام كباني وإلا الشيخ بادشاه وإلا الشيخ دكتور تاري القادري وإلا الشيخ محمد أديل وإلا الشيخ نور كباني وإلا كياي مصطفى الكيل وإلا كياي يايا خليل ستاكوف وإلا سري سردينا وصديقيون الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Ya Allah, we pray you shower your blessings upon the soul of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu for all eternity and raise his station ever in your divine presence, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we pray you shower your blessings upon the holy household of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu the Ahlul Bayt, the also on the previous prophets and their noble ancestors and their noble descendants, and upon the Sahaba Ikram, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. May Allah accept them all. Ya Allah, we pray you shower your blessings upon the righteous caliphs, upon the scholars and the saints, the awliya Allah, especially my sheikhs, Sufi Abdullah, Maulana Sheikh Nazim, and Sheikh Dawud Rasa Owen. Ya Allah, bless their souls and raise their stations in your divine presence. Ya Allah, shower your blessings upon my dear father, Richard Kevin Armstrong. Bless his soul and raise his station in your divine presence. Ya Allah, shower your blessings upon Sheikh Sharif Hidayatullah, upon all of the Wali Songo, upon Sheikh Yusuf Makasri, upon Sheikh Adang Badruddin, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Al-Sufi, and Sheikh Didik. Ya Allah, bless their souls and raise their stations in your divine presence. Ya Allah, we pray you shower your blessings upon all of our mothers and our fathers and our grandparents and our ancestors. Ya Allah, if anything we do in this life or will do is pleasing to you, Ya Allah, we pray you grant the blessing of this upon our ancestors and upon our parents, upon our ancestors, and upon the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Ya Allah, and all the prophets, Ya Allah, and all the awliya Allah. Ya Allah, that it may be a barakah for all of them, for without them we are nothing. We wouldn't even have come into existence, and we certainly wouldn't know what to do with that existence. So we owe all of that to them, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, bless all of their souls and forgive them any mistakes, raise their stations in your divine presence. Ya Allah, we pray for our brothers and our sisters, uncles and our aunties, nieces and our nephews, and especially our beloved wives or our husbands, and our children or future children, and future generations. Ya Allah, forgive and bless us, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, bless our progeny. Make families, entire families to always be under your divine protection and blessing. Ya Allah, grant that our children may not stray too far from the path and may swiftly return to it, Ya Allah, and all be under your divine guidance and blessing and connected to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu through the awliya Allah, Ya Allah. We pray that you bless and protect our families, bless and protect our communities, and we pray that you bless everyone in our human family. Ya Allah, forgive us all and bless us all. You created all of this universe, including every human being, from the Nur Muhammad Sallallahu. We are all created from this reflected light that you reflected through the heart and soul of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. So, Ya Allah, how can you burn us, Ya Allah? How can you burn any of us? And how can any of us be happy if we are separated from our brothers and sisters in humanity when we, when we turn up again in that afterlife, Ya Allah, wherever that may be. Ya Allah, we pray for everybody's forgiveness. We pray for everybody's blessing. We pray for raising of human consciousness in this time, and for us to transcend the things of the dunya and the distractions of the illusions of this world, Ya Allah. And we pray that you open our hearts, our souls, and our minds to the true reality and grant us connection through the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu and the awliya Allah to your divine realities, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, grant that we may all be filled with light, Ya Allah, that we may have light to the right of us and light to the left of us, light above us and light below us, light behind us and light in front of us. Ya Allah, grant that we may be filled with light and enlightenment and blessings, Ya Allah. For the sake of your beloved Rasulullah Sallallahu Salli ya Rabbi wa sallim ala jami anbiyahi wa mursaleen wa including ajma'een walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Al-Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Ya Allah, grant us all long lives and good health and well-being, and the best of this life and the best of the hereafter. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad sayyidina Salim salli rabbi wa sallim ala jami' anbiya wa muslimin including ajma'in alhamdulillahi bil alamin. Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Ya Allah, we also pray for everyone who's been affected by the earthquakes in Syria and in Turkey and also in South America. Ya Allah, whoever has had their lives disrupted by these natural disasters, whoever has lost loved ones, Ya Allah, we pray that you grant those loved ones forgiveness and Jannatul Firdaus. And Ya Allah, for those left behind, we pray that you grant them support with anything which they need, Ya Allah. Inspire the hearts of people within our human family who can support and help them, and grant them help and support from where they do not expect, that they may be able to get their lives back on track, may be able to be healed, may be able to rebuild their communities, Ya Allah. For the sake of your beloved Rasulullah Sallallahu Rabbi wa sallim ala jami' anbiya'i wa muslimin kulli ajma'in walhamdulillahi bil alamin. Al-Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم آمين. Thank you for joining us for this Sohbet and Sufi meditation. Next week, the week after, and the week after that, I will not be doing this from the chaplaincy. I will be doing it from a home for personal reasons, which I'm not going to go into here. But it makes it not possible for me to come into the chaplaincy for a few weeks. Just thinking, when will that be next? Okay, so '24th. So I'll be back in the chaplaincy on Mondays from the 24th of April. So just bear that in mind if you were thinking of joining me here. But I will still, inshallah, be doing this online, hopefully on a Monday evening, but providing the circumstances permit. So look forward to seeing you on Friday for my online Friday reflections. And again, from next Monday online. Until then, I wish you all a very good week. If you're in the UK, have a very good evening, and wherever you are in the world, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of God be with you all.